I didn't sell a single property between '05 and '08. I was roofing houses, working on an oil rig, just totally out of the game. After all the dust settled, you look back and you say, wait a second, there were still closings happening every single day. Lots of them.
In any industry follow a typical path, right? They go from hardworking in their own profession, they turn that into success, they talk about that success, and then they start coaching for fees to other people in their profession to hopefully help them replicate their success. And our guest today, Ricky Carruth, is a coach. The big difference, though, in that path and his path is he coaches for free. Thousands of realtors across the country seek out his education, knowledge, insight, information, guidance, and he does it for free, which is just crazy to think about. His background is so interesting, going from building houses with his dad to building a super successful real estate business, completely losing it all, going into oil rigging and then building houses again, coming back into real estate and building it again into the #1 agent in Alabama, basically on the back of cold calling. It is such a crazy, interesting story. And we had a pleasure to listen to him.
I mean, he does over $1 million in commissions and he does free coaching. It's wild. Typically, you do one for the other, then they feed the other. He's doing the free coaching because he really wants to elevate his industry. You can ask him every single follow-up question you want. That's the why. There's no right hook coming.
The byproduct has been that he's received a lot of referrals from people that know he does business in Alabama, but that was never the plan, right? That was just a consequence of doing the right thing. So cool.
It's really cool. There's two things I think our listeners here should pay attention to. One, his journey with books on an oil rig, challenged himself, followed through with it. It's an incredible story. And then part two, his overall theme of relationships over transactions. Now, Maddie, you and I have been so guilty in the past about transactions and not diving into the fact that they are relationships. And this was a welcomed refresher.
Agreed, man. And I think anyone listening to this, we're in business and sales and marketing. At one point in their career, they probably made the similar mistake, right? They focused on the outcomes, the transactions, the product, and they forgot that all that's really generated by the relationships. And he's just never forgets it. And he's so consistent and disciplined with the front end.
Today on the Big W, we're bringing you Ricky Carruth. Well, Ricky, thanks so much for being on. What you're doing in the real estate community, we can't wait to highlight. We're so excited to just have a good conversation with you and chat about everything you got going on. But Millionaire 23, need to hear about how you got into real estate and how you had such instant success. What were some drivers to your very early success?
My dad had me and my brother on a roof when we were 8 years old, cleaning up job sites. And by the time I was like 13, I was laying shingles. And maybe by the time I was maybe like 17, I was like roofing entire houses by myself, kind of following his lead and watching him, because here's a guy that was 45 years old at the time that was literally outworking every single person on the job site. Like the kids that were out there that were in their 20s, that were older than me, but they were like workers, in shape. He was outworking them. He was laying more shingles. He was laying more metal. He was on top of his game. And it was like really super inspiring to watch him crush their production twice their age. And something about going through that and watching that, it really molded me in terms of work ethic. I always wanted to do great things. My thing all growing up when I was a little kid was that I wanted to do something in which I made so much money that I could then turn around and help millions of people somehow. And that's exactly what happened. And I literally envisioned this as a kid. I was just driven to do something always next level. Like I'm always looking for the next level, next level, next level, next level. Where's the next level? And so for roofing, hey, I'd have been happy being a roofer the rest of my life, to be honest with you, because work is work. When I lost everything in the crash and went back to roofing houses, I was perfectly fine with that. Now, it was tough knowing that I lost $1 million and now I was roofing houses. But as far as what I did day to day, nothing changed. I got up, I worked all day. If I lost everything right now today, my day wouldn't change one bit. I would get up at 4:30. I would do my thing. I would work out. I would go to work all day. Nothing would change. My life wouldn't change much. Might I not have a nice of a house or cars or whatever? Maybe, if I lost everything or whatever. But as far as what I do on a day-to-day basis, nothing would change. Now, let's fast forward 5 years and say I become this like huge, ultra wealthy person with 20, 30 million in the bank. Nothing's going to change at that point. I just like to work. So when I got out of high school, I went to college because that was supposedly the next level. Went to 4 different schools in 2 years, failed a history class, and college is just not my thing. And then I found out real estate was one class to get your license. And I was like, bam, because I'm a creature of efficiency. Whatever's the most efficient thing to do, I'm going to do it right then. No questions asked, no overthinking. I'm just going to do it.
You mentioned briefly, said lost a lot in the crash and had to go back to roofing houses. Can you take us back to that? That's a crazy moment that most people would be devastated with. It obviously didn't really affect you from a production standpoint, but clearly it affects decisions you were making at the time. So tell us a little bit about that challenge that you had to overcome.
Basically, when I got in real estate, it took me 8 months to make my first sale. I'm literally roofing houses and doing real estate on the side, trying to get going. And I finally made my first sale. I actually closed on 2 sales on the same day. I'm not even going to lie. My first sale was my grandmother's condo.
Nice.
But from that point, I sold about 2 a month for a while. And then the market just absolutely exploded between probably 2003 and 2004. The market doubled. My prices doubled in like a year and a half. It was insane. And, I made a lot of money during that time. And I was literally 22, 23 years old. I was buying properties, fixing them up, flipping them. I was just buying and flipping. I bought a bunch of land, split it up, sold the lots. I was buying Hummers and Cadillacs. I had 2 houses. I was just going to town, dude. I was like, I'm a real estate mogul. I was retired. I was like, man, I'm set. I'm going to be a billionaire. This is cool. And then the market crashed. And so when the market crashed, I had so much debt. I had about $1.5 million worth of debt on just houses and cars and properties I was flipping, just the whole 9 yards. The market didn't just go to zero overnight. It was a very gradual decline. Every month was a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit lower. And so it still gave you this glimmer of hope that it wasn't going to just completely fall off, So you're holding on. Everybody was just holding on for dear life during that time. Everybody I talked to was like, give it 6 months. And wait 6 months. It's like, give it 6 more months. Wait 6 more. It's like, give it 6 more months. It was the longest decline, the slow decline of a market probably most everybody alive right now has ever seen. So I had some reserves. However, I used those reserves to hang on. I was still paying those notes and I was trying to just hang on for dear life. And I eventually lost it all. I eventually depleted my reserves and ended up having to go bankrupt and give everything back. And I literally had nothing, not a place to live, not a car, nothing. One of my friends gave me their beat up car. We called it the Ford Caddy because I had a Cadillac CTS-V, which has a Corvette engine in it. That's what I was driving. And then all of a sudden, boom, I'm driving this Ford Contour, like 90 something model, beat up dents, brake lights don't work, driver door doesn't work, got to get in the passenger side, had a boom box in the back seat, the whole 9 yards. This thing was wild. And I was riding around in that, roofing houses. Like the day that I didn't sell real estate was the day I was on a roof. My dad always said, never quit a job, just add to it. So I've always had 2 jobs my entire life. When I was roofing houses as a kid in high school, I was also cooking in a restaurant. I was cooking in a seafood restaurant at night. Later on, when I lost everything and went back to roofing houses, I was also serving tables in a steakhouse at nighttime. So I was literally serving tables at night and then getting up and roofing houses all day during that time when I had no bills. Like, why do you got 2 jobs and you have no bills? I had 0 bills. Then I went and worked on an oil rig, making $5,000 a month for what? Like I was literally risking my life for nothing. I had nothing I had to pay for. There was nothing to pay for. I had no electric bills, no rent, no insurance, nothing. And I got dropped all the way down to the bottom. And then I just said, okay, I'm right here. Now, how do I build from here? How do I go to the next level from there?
Do you think the habits you have today would keep you from 0 in the event of a complete crash or a slow decline or the same scenario? Or do you think your habits combined with the market crash resulted in that bankruptcy?
Yeah, man. Like what I learned through that situation, what happened is I was on the oil rig and I literally read 100 books as fast as I could.
Wow.
I had a goal. I was like, I'm going to read 100 books. 2007 to 2008, those 2 years, I read 100 books. It was like one a week. I mean, I was just blowing through them. I was so interested in why I failed. What happened? Like, where did I go wrong? And so I was like so obsessed with successful people and real estate books and self-development, things of that nature. I just went hard and really wanted to gain a lot of knowledge on these kind of things because I'm one of these guys where as soon as you teach me how to do something, you don't have to tell me ever again. Like you tell me that one time and I got it. So when the market crashed on me, I said, okay, cool. That's what happens. All right, good. I'm going to figure out how that to never happen again.
Got it.
So I was just on this journey of how do I make sure this never happens again? So a couple of things that I realized, not even through the books, I just realized that closings continued to happen every single day through the crash. You know, when I look back and I didn't sell a single property between '05 and '08, not a single property for 3 years. I was roofing houses, working on an oil rig, just totally out of the game. I still had my license. I still had MLS. I was still able to research the market and watch it and stuff. After all the dust settled, you look back and you say, wait a second, there were still closings happening every single day. Lots of them. It might have went down tremendously, but what was left was still a magnificently high number compared to zero. Another something I realized was that, okay, if closings are happening every day, how do I become the agent representing people during those transactions? And that's when I really started to look hard at the market. And I realized that some of my clients who were buying for me at the top when I was still in the game back in '02, '03, and '04, they were still buying and selling in 5, 6, and 7. They were selling bad assets and buying new assets at lower prices. They were doing multiple transactions, buying and selling. I looked at tax records and I realized that a lot of my clients were still in the game. Then it hit me when I realized closings happen every day and my clients were still buying or selling, that everything came to me at once. And I was like, it's relationships, right? It's relationships over transactions. Up to that point, it was just about the money, transactions, closings, all that. But right in that moment, sometime late 2007, I realized it's about relationships. At the time, you didn't have to maintain relationships. Prices were going up like $100,000 a month on the beach. And like I would sell it and then that seller was gone because he's not going to buy back in for $100,000 more than what he just paid for it a month ago. So he took his money and ran and I didn't have to have a relationship with him. I just call another seller and say, hey, you want to make $100,000? Yeah, cool. Boom, boom. There's another one. Okay, let's do another one. And I didn't have to maintain any relationships. But yet I was doing deal after deal after deal after deal. And that was kind of the market I was born into. That's how I thought real estate was done. Mm-hmm. That's why I lost everything because I had no connection with anybody in my database. It was all cold relationships. There was no substance to it. There was no, how can I help you? There was no, how are you doing? There was just like, let's do a deal. See you later. Let's do a deal. See you later. Through that, I had to realize what it really was. And I had to do a 180 on my philosophies.
So crazy freaking roller coaster. You're at the bottom. It's demotivating to go through that experience in any industry. Unique time in history that brought these factors together that created this nutty environment. You go into roofing and serving and cooking and oil rigs. You go through this personal development phase, read 100 books. You learn a lot. You had this aha moment of relationships matter more than transactions. How do you go and rebuild relationships at that stage? Like, you've been out for a couple of years. You haven't been connecting with these people the way that, but these ex-clients of yours you could reach out to. How do you rebuild from there? How do you get back in the real estate game and start rebuilding again?
I didn't really try to rebuild. I just started from scratch. Brand new relationships, people I've never talked to before. It literally started as a brand new agent, not knowing anyone. Okay, let's go. What do we do first, second, third, so on and so forth. So I didn't even go back and try to rekindle relationships. And to be honest with you, at that point, I didn't really have their contact information or anything. I looked in tax records and recognized names and stuff, but I didn't really know how to recontact them if I wanted to, kind of deal. I literally just started from scratch. So what I started doing is I actually did some email marketing And I was like, okay, people in the Southeast, come down to the beach. It's just as beautiful as it was 3 years ago, but yet it's half the price. And I actually sold a couple condos like that. January 1st, 2008, I got laid off from the oil rig. That was the year Obama came in presidency. There was a lot of oil incentives to oil companies that got taken off the table, and gas prices were down really low. The oil industry was not in a good place. They started laying off people. So I literally worked there for 52 weeks, 1 week on, 1 week off. So I was there 26 weeks over a year period of time, a land rig in Hattiesburg. And the month I got laid off in January, I literally had some people I was talking to, because at the end of 2007, I started doing this. And I put something under contract in January, 2 properties, and we closed at the very end of February. And I remember I had some money saved up, and I used it to live on. I remember a week before those closing, I had to borrow $500 from my dad just to make it to those closings. And then when I hit those closings, I made like 25,000 or something like that. And I was just kind of off to the races. And so that 25,000 put me in position to really do real estate full time. And I was like, I'm back in the game. Like, hallelujah. I didn't think that would ever happen again. So I literally started doing mail outs to property owners on the beach, started doing mail outs, letters, postcards, and calling them. Facebook wasn't really a big thing, I guess, yet. But like, I don't use social media in my business now in terms of my direct real estate business. Now, what's interesting is I get a lot of referrals indirectly from the social media that I do in my coaching business. But man, as far as the conversations and beginning those new relationships, when I started to have conversations with property owners from that point forward, and my objective was to actually connect with them and help them short and long-term forever, like they were family, the conversations were completely different. The feeling that I got and that they got, it was just a completely different ball game than all the conversations I had before the market crash, when it was all about the deal. It's a game changer. When you start to treat people like family and they start to talk to you and look at you like they trust you, like you're their family, then game over. If you can scale that across thousands of people in your market, you're the number one agent.
When we were like looking at your stuff, I mean, relationships over transactions seems like something that you say as much as I say my kids' names. I mean, I feel like you say it all the time, and it's super important. Your model is counterintuitive, but also very obvious. It's an interesting mix because relationships over transactions makes perfect sense. But cold calling feels way more like transactions than it does relationships. So I watched your video where you talked about how you try to treat them like your friend right away in cold calling. And that's one of the methods to the madness is in the cold calling atmosphere. So when you go into a cold call, are you trying to get as quickly into a relationship as possible? Is that the goal in cold calling for you?
Yeah, man. Listen, it's all perspective. So if you take cold calling and you say this is more transactional than relationship, then it is. If you look at it like, okay, this is a relationship builder. That's what's great about life and business. It's whatever you want out of it. Whatever you want out of something is what's going to happen. So with cold calling and trying to build relationships, it boils down to, do we have the same tone when we're talking to strangers as we do when we're talking to our mom and dad and brother and cousin? Think about it. When you're talking to your mom, dad, brother, or cousin, think about your mindset, how comfortable you are, the tone, the speed of your voice, the whole 9 yards, the whole mental snapshot of how you talk to your mom, dad, brother, cousin. Okay. And then think about where you are mentally when you talk to a prospect. Two completely different things. You may be nervous. You may think this. You may think that. You're scared. Maybe you're comfortable, but you still feel like you have to try to set an appointment or get a deal. There's like something there that doesn't quite allow you to feel as comfortable on the phone with a prospect as you do with your mom, dad, brother, or cousin. Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to take whatever that is that's in the calls of the prospects that's preventing you from being comfortable with your prospects and treating them exactly like your mom, dad, brother, or cousin, and take that completely out of the equation. And you want to take a mental snapshot of when you are talking to a family member and say, okay, this is what Ricky was talking about. How your shoulders are relaxed, how the speed of your voice, the tone of your voice, what you're saying everything should line up exactly the same as when you're talking to prospects for the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth and millionth time. Okay. So when a prospect answers the phone, you literally have, 1.5 seconds, something like that, to actually give them the impression that you're there to help them. How do you do that? Because 1.5 seconds, you don't have time to say a word. So how do you give them the impression that you're not there to sell them something, but there just to help them within 1.5 seconds? It comes down to tone, speed of voice, timing, all this stuff. The little minute differences can throw the whole thing off. And so it all comes down to you being comfortable, right? I call it FE, friend family effect. If you can talk to them like they're family, give them that friend and family effect, make them really feel like they're a friend or family member, you can have completely different results. Within the first conversation, they feel comfortable with you. They start talking to you like you're their son or daughter or cousin or mom. And the next thing you know, they're telling you all this and all that. And by the end of the conversation, you're great friends. They're giving you their contact information. And from there, you're building a personal brand with them.
Was this another one of your wedges of your overall marketing strategy that worked really well? And you found, hey, this is tested, time and true, doesn't matter. It'll always work.
Dude, listen, it was the only thing that I did. It wasn't a piece of it. It was 100% of it. There was a time where I just quit doing direct mail. There was a time where I just quit doing everything else. Right now, my real estate business is about the same as it was when I got back in. I do a weekly email. That's the only thing I do for my entire business, and I have more business than I can handle. Now, I made 100,000 calls between 2002 when I got in and 4 years ago when I stopped making calls. I made 100,000 calls. I picked up 5,000 people out of that 100,000 calls. It went into my database, getting a weekly email. And then it's grown to about 12,000 now through referrals and just buyers and just whatever. People that have contacted me or what, like I throw them in there. So it's organically grown from there. But when you get your database up to a 5,000 to 10,000 number of people that you've actually talked to verbally and they've given you their contact information, this is different than a Zillow lead that didn't call you back or a Facebook lead that gave a fake email address. This is somebody who gave you verbally and felt comfortable with you. You have to communicate who you are. Most people look at cold calls like trying to get a transaction. Why? Because that's the stereotypical cold calling training. The big coaches in the industry, the cold calling scripts are literally, hey, how you doing? You thought about selling? You know what I'm saying? Oh, do you know anybody that might want to sell? And it's like, you don't know me and I don't know you, Mr. Seller, but will you sell your house so I can make a commission? Because I'm only here for me. I'm trying to see if I can make some money. And if not, well, screw you, man. Who do you know? Hey, do you know anybody else that might make me some money? Because I'm on this mission to try to make me some money. Whereas I'm flipping the industry on its head and saying, wait a minute, guys, that's not what cold calling is. Cold calling is not about what they can do for you. Let's make it about what the agent can do for the prospect, right? And then we enter into the conversation with the intentions of not doing a deal, more so trying to get to know them and become their friends to find out what we can do. It's like sometimes I call and the seller's like, I ain't selling. Like, well, good, because that's not why I'm calling you today. Okay. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but a house around the corner did just sell. And I was just calling to see what I could do for you. I don't want to know what I can't do for you, ma'am. I want to know what I can do to help you. And if nothing, if there's nothing right now, cool. Is there an agent that you would work with if you were to do something? No? Well, cool. Well, look, at some point, I'm sure you're going to buy or sell in the future. I'm sure I'd love the opportunity to work with you when that day comes. Would it be all right if I just stayed in touch with you?
Oh, that's cold.
So you always ask if it's okay to stay in touch before you ask for the email address. Because a lot of agents, they'll say, oh, can I stay in touch via email? Heck no, you can't, right? Or they say, oh, can I send you market reports? No, we don't want any more market reports. We're getting flooded with market reports. Because you don't want the prospect to feel like they're just another number on your list. Everything has to be very personalized. It's like, hey, listen, I just want to stay in touch with you, right? Can I stay in touch with you? Cool. What's your email? I'll stay in touch with you there. It's the same thing when agents call property owners and say, oh, I'm just calling all the people in the subdivision. Oh, okay, cool. So what you're telling me is that you're just calling this long list of people and I'm just another name. You're just going through the motions, just calling all the people in the subdivision. Now, that's not good. It's these little things that add up to make them feel special because they are special and you're trying to create a relationship with them, right? This goes deep. My philosophy behind the scripts, the do's and don'ts goes so deep as far as building this instant rapport, calling property owners.
Yeah, Ricky, I love it. Matt and I, we've had the privilege of chatting with some successful people over the course of our years, and there's a lot of character traits I would say that they share in common, but maybe one of the biggest is their servant mindset. They truly believe that what they're doing is putting somebody in a better place. And it's not necessarily a product they're selling. They believe that the conversations they're having and that the teams that they're building are putting people in a better place than where they were. And I just see that in what you're talking about. And one thing I was writing down as you're going through is it seems like with your cold calling, you have about a 5% success rate, give or take.
Yeah, here's the numbers. If you make 100 calls in a day, right, you're probably going to actually talk to 10 to 15, right? And then you're probably going to have 5 really good conversations.
Yep. Exactly. So you got about a 5% success rate with that model, yet you're one of the most successful realtors in the entire country.
It's like baseball, man. What's the batting average? Like 300 is incredible. That's like hitting the ball 30% of the time, but yet 300 is like the number one guy in history.
As long as you get enough plate appearances, you're golden. And I think that's your mindset, right? You're willing to outwork everyone else and willing to put in the work to get as many plate appearances as possible. You don't care if it's a 5% return, 8% return, 2% return. You know exactly the outcome is going to be the product.
Well, yeah and no. See, I could get more at bats than I even do now. But there's this balance that you have to find between quantity and quality. Because some people say, oh, it's just a numbers game. And then you got these, jackasses out there making like 1,000 calls a day just saying, hey, this is so-and-so. You want to sell your house? Nope. Okay. Hey, this is so-and-so. Want to sell your house? Nope. Okay. They're going through volume, but there's no quality behind it. I could have more quantity. What you have to do is find your pace. Everybody has a different pace. It's like, how much can you mentally handle at one time? Because your success, literally business is unlimited for each and every person, right? When you think of business, let's think about it like this. It's not transactions or how many closings you have or what happened this year in the market compared to how many agents there are. I don't look at it like that. I think how many relationships are available to me in the market. That to me is market share, and that to me kind of ties it all together. So when I'm looking at it like that, business is completely unlimited because I can't talk to every single person that's available for me to talk to in the market ever in my life. And I'm not looking at it on a 1-year basis or a 2-year basis or a 5 or 10-year basis. Right, I'm looking at it on a lifetime basis. I can't talk to all these people in my life. Therefore, business is unlimited, right? Because I can't talk to everyone ever in my life. That's what's really cool about real estate. It's a voice-to-voice business. You can get your leads online. You can do social media. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to actually talk voice-to-voice to them. You can build the rapport online and then talk to them, or you can just talk to them and then build your rapport online. Right? Either way it goes, you got to talk to them before the transaction is going to happen. Every closing comes from a conversation that was converted into a relationship, right? That then transferred into the transaction somewhere along the line. So when you realize that business is unlimited, now what is your success predicated on? It's predicated on how much you can mentally handle at one time, at any given time. What's your bandwidth? You know what I mean?
At what point did you transition into sharing, which turned into coaching, consulting, and kind of going in that space? Because there's a lot of really successful people in a lot of different businesses, especially real estate, that never transcend and go into coaching. What was the impetus behind that?
Like I said from the very beginning, I'm always looking for what's the next level? What's the next step towards something bigger? Always, right? So once I got in real estate, made it all, then lost everything, then got back in real estate in 2008. Then it took me 6 years to get to 100 deals a year. So think about that. It took me 6 years. Once I understood the philosophies behind what I'm doing now, it still took me 6 years of implementing it to get to 100 deals a year. Everybody wants everything right now. And it took me 6 years implementing my strategies that I'm teaching now to get to 100 deals a year. And once I hit 100 deals in 2014, I was the number 1 Remax agent in Alabama that year. Once I got there, I started getting scared because I was like, okay, I made it all and lost it before. Is this real? is this going to stick? And so 2015, I did it. And then 2016, I did it. And then at the beginning of 2017, after I did that for 3 years, I said, okay, I think I really have something that I need to share with the industry. Because in 2015, I actually hired a coach because I was frustrated with the business because I wasn't making $1 million a year. I was only making 600 and I was like really depressed. So I hired a coach to help me try to get to the next level. And what I realized through that coaching was that the coaching industry is really jacked up. And so after another year and a half of me doing business after I fired that coach, I realized I needed to step in because here's the thing. Agents that need coaching can't afford it. That's why they need it. They're broke and they don't know how to build their business. And the agents that can afford it don't need it. They might want it, but if you have $1,000 a month, disposable income, you obviously are in a good place. So it's totally backwards. You got agents out there putting coaching on credit cards, going in debt. They haven't even sold a property yet. It's ridiculous what's going on. And so I just decided that was my next level. And it goes back to when I was a kid thinking about, I'm going to make it and then I'm going to give back and I'm going to help people. And so that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to try to write a book. So a lot of coaches, you'll see the ones that aren't as popular, they've been in the industry 2 years, sold 17 properties, and now they're selling courses for $500. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what's interesting in this whole thing. Matt and I owned an insurance agency for 10 years. 6 years in, we were interviewed on a podcast. And after that podcast, we had hundreds of people calling us saying, I want more. Tell me more. I need to hear more. We were flooded. And so we opened a consulting company to help some of them. And then we realized wow, we need to be compensated for our time because this is an incredible amount of time. From your perspective, you do it as you're not compensated for your time. You do it as a straight give. If this grows really big, do you see it impacting the $1 million in commission you're trying to do and more each and every year? Or do you have plans on delegating? What's the future look like with this?
I've been doing it since 2017. I've made $1 million a year ever since. It hasn't affected my sales whatsoever, even this year with the pandemic and everything. I'm on track to have my best year ever, actually, this year.
Yeah.
And I'm doing podcasts like this. I'm making videos every day. I'm on coaching calls every day. That's what I keep trying to tell agents is that the way that I built my business through building a personal brand through my weekly email and making your database is so quality because you've actually talked to these people and you have this genuine relationship with them. It's just created such a monster that there's very little effort. I'm in a constant mode of just following up and closing deals.
So you're in a snowball effect. I mean, in Alabama, you probably don't have much snow. You don't really understand what I'm talking about. But basically you have made this big, solid, quality boulder, and now you're pushing it downhill. And obviously trying to make it bigger and bigger and bigger as you go. But you look at this as this is going to be a straight give because it's not going to impact my business. It's going to help thousands.
Exactly. It's not going to impact my business at all.
It's awesome.
And it allows me to build a personal brand globally. Right. So when I look at real estate and I say, okay, my real estate business is local. Okay, well, you can tap out locally. I mean, as far as me selling real estate, I could probably get it up to 1.5 to 2 million a year. If I didn't coach and I didn't do anything else, I just focused on real estate, I could maybe get it up to 1.5, 2 million a year. And it's localized and I will probably be tapping out at 1.5 to 2 million. But what if I made $1 million very effortlessly and then use that other time to build a global brand and a global business? I'm just kind of taking it as it comes and just doing my best to try to push everything as far as it can go and be most efficient and impact the most people.
I love the heart side of it. I wrote down the line you said earlier about those who really need it can't afford it. And that's where the conundrum is for a lot of coaches and consultants, because if you have a heart, you really want to help those people. But you know that if you're going to be in that business and spend time in it, it's got to be profitable. You found a way to continue to leverage all the work that you've done, the quality work, quality relationships you have, so that doing business, your retail business, is a little bit easier. It's not as hard anymore, which gives you more bandwidth to invest in the people who really need it. What's your biggest challenge or obstacle in terms of coaching others?
I try to take it as easy and carefree as possible. I try not to let anything really frustrate me because the thing is this, I'm giving you everything that I know for free. You can do whatever you want with it. That's the beauty of it being for free. It's like, Okay, you say cold calling doesn't work because you only made 100 calls and you didn't make $1 million. Okay, whatever. But at the same time, I didn't charge you to try it. You know what I mean? So go back to watching Netflix and trying to meet people at the grocery store and stuff. And I know I'll keep making my millions, and you go do, you can't make people do stuff.
Right.
You know, and that is a big challenge. Only a really small percentage of people will actually follow through.
Have you found that a lot of those, the people that do follow through have circled back and just kind of given you specific feedback, and those relationships have really strengthened as well?
Dude, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of screenshots of agents who are just absolutely ecstatic at where their business is now that they've started to implement what I teach. Yeah, it's massive. That's one of the big perks, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's like those relationships, you never know where they're going to lead to. You know, I've already had some things happen, you know, from relationships I met through people in that space, unreal things that have happened. And there's no telling what's going to happen moving forward.
I gotta tell you, like cold calling and your zero to diamond actually share the exact same philosophy. The more I listen to it, it's you're in it to create relationships in cold calling, and you're in it to create relationships with zero to diamond.
Yeah.
That's the same philosophy.
Well, that brings up another thing I think you guys will think is interesting. When I first started coaching in 2017, I was charging.
Oh.
Yeah, I was charging $20. I charged $100. I charged $1,000 one-time fee. I charged $150. I did a bunch of different stuff. And one day I woke up and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not running my coaching business like I'm teaching my agents to run their real estate business. I'm telling them it's all about the relationship, but here I am trying to charge them, right? And then I looked at the data, and the data showed that 300 people would sign up for a webinar, 100 would show up, and 1 or 2 would sign up. And so I look at those numbers and I think, okay, 300 people wanted some help. 100 of them really needed some help because they showed up, but then only 1 or 2 took action. You know, it's like, I don't want just 1 or 2 out of 300. I want all 300 to know me and love me. And so it turns into a thing where you look at paid coaches and you think, okay, those are some polarizing figures. People either love Tom Ferry or hate his guts. It's more like they like him or hate him. Very few actually are like, we love him. For me, it's like, we love Ricky because he gave me everything for free. And so now you have this community that'll follow you to the ends of the earth.
And those who didn't succeed, who would normally have resentment towards those who charged them, promising them a road to success, will never be able to come back and have that feeling towards you.
Exactly. They still respect it. Zero to Diamond and the coaching program is not a cold calling program. Mm-hmm. It's a communication program. You know, cold calling is a vehicle I think is most effective, but that's the nuts and bolts of what I do in my business. There's this whole other side of it, which is how do we communicate with people? And what do we focus on? And what's the objectives of the communication? You know what I mean? It's like we want to communicate who we are as a person, that we care, that we're honest, that we're hardworking, dependable, professional. We want to be able to communicate that to people. You know, and the mainstream scripts do not. You know, it puts you in a position where you're communicating that you're a car salesman when you really care about people on the inside, but it's just not coming out that way because you're being sold on these scripts that are teaching the exact opposite. So I want you to know that cold calling, yes, I teach that, but at the same time, you can get way more out of the program than just cold calling. I have guys that just do videos on Facebook that use my program. And when they communicate with people that come in contact with them, they're using my language, my scripts. They get them on a weekly email. I have people that do Zillow leads that crush it using my system. They just do Zillow leads instead of cold calls, but they have the same back end systems that I have in terms of how we communicate and how we stay in touch and how we build personal brand.
I think it's an important distinction. It's more about the how than the what. The what, it's interchangeable. You know, if it's Zillow, online leads, Facebook videos, whatever, but the how is what you're talking about. It's how you communicate, how you effectively build relationships through communication strategies. And then consistency and the crazy work ethic, which is almost like underlying fact that is non-negotiable.
I think what I've learned the most about you too is very similar. It's like Matt and I love golf, so we compare a lot of things to golf. It truly doesn't matter how you take away the club. It doesn't matter where it stops or how long it goes. It doesn't even matter how you get down. What matters is when you get to the ball, what does the club face look like at impact? Because that's going to determine where the ball goes. And what you're saying with this coaching platform, whatever, and all these other things you're doing is I don't care what method you do it. What I care about is the empathy and how you approach the communication. And do you understand what the other person's going through? And are you relating to them? Are you actually listening? Are you just waiting to talk?
Right.
I think you've done a tremendous job explaining that. I love these podcasts because I know Matt and I always walk away with a page full of notes. Yeah. Ricky, you're impressive, man. Keep doing.
That's all I can do, man, is just keep going. You know, 3 years ago when I started YouTube and stuff, I was having like 50 views a video. And I was like, man, this sucks. You know what I mean? You just got to keep going.